Are you struggling on defense in your Madden 25 rebuilds? No matter how good of a defense you build, you just can't get the stats and the production you want out of your defense? Well, if you're running a 3-4, today is your day. I got the three best 3-4 defenses to rebuild with in Madden 25. So let's get into it. What's up, my Madden Rebuild Warriors? My name is David, and this is Franchise Revival. We are talking about playbooks, the 3-4 defensive playbooks. We have an update to a previous video we've posted about 3-4 defenses. A lot has changed. We care about sacks, winning, interceptions, and there's only a few, three of them, that we really want to focus in on here. But there's a couple other ones that I'll mention that in case you want to stick true to your team, you're in luck. There's a couple more that are worthy of using, but most 3-4 playbooks are just They don't do much. For testing, use the Steelers. Took off all the abilities. I loved using the Steelers. Well, one, they have two great enough outside linebackers. They got a good DN. They got good players around it, and their offense is like middle of the road. It's usually like in the mid-20s, bottom 20s of offense. So using them and seeing a team's record get elevated by a defensive playbook really stands out. Because when a playbook's not good, the Steelers ain't good. But when a defensive playbook is good, that Steelers record goes up and they start making the playoffs. So it was pretty easy to see which playbooks were good. And then also sack numbers, where the team ranks as far as pass, rush against, points against, interceptions, and then individual numbers. So we're going to go over all that very in depth. It took me a while to do this, and I put a lot of effort into it, a lot of notes taking, a lot of simulations. It's kind of boring, but hey, we want to rebuild and win championships, but also put up numbers. You know, that's why we like the Rams. The Rams, can win championships and throw for like 5,000 yards and 55 touchdowns and break records with your slot wide receiver. So we want to try and get that for a 3-4. Couple key tips, especially if you're new here, I want to throw out there to help you with your defense before we just consider the playbooks. Pick the right offense. We have plenty of content on here of offenses I like. A lot of it's still very relevant. We will be updating offense come next week or two. So subscribe to the channel if you're not already. We'll have more of that out for you. Especially if you take an offense that is balanced or run balanced, the more you run and control the clock, the better your defense will be. Points against wise, passing against wise, and stuff like that. That really doesn't really build XP, but it helps you win for sure. If you're in the Rams, you're throwing a lot, and sometimes that can hurt your defense. Of course, pick the right defensive playbook. 3-4, 4-3, where you want to be strong at, where you want to build your team at. That's very important. Kind of group 2 in there, but you want to know what your defense is, what kind of defense you have. Are you strong secondary? Do you want to, you have a strong middle linebackers, and then pick one of these playbooks based off that. What are you going after? Do you have a strong secondary? Do you have a strong interior defensive line? Strong at linebacker? So kind of be knowledgeable and think about what you want from your defense. And then use the right abilities. I will talk a lot about abilities on this channel going forward. Whether I like them or not, I think abilities are better off or no abilities. At the end of the day, you get better consistent numbers, and you get your defenders with the wrong abilities, their production goes down if you have the wrong ones on. So another reason to subscribe is we'll be trying to find the best abilities on defense as well, especially ones that work with the playbooks we're going to post. So let's get into it. Let's talk about 3 defenses that stood out to me that just didn't make the top 3, but I think are kind of important to talk about. All right, so first on the honorable mention list here, we have the Detroit Lions. Uh, what stood out to me about them is they had the second highest sack total as a team of any simulation I did. Now, when I did do some simulations with them with other teams, especially the Ravens, they weren't as good. But as far as simulations went with the Steelers, they did pretty well. I would say that their record wasn't as great. It wasn't consistent. So there are some things going on there with their record and their numbers against the pass and the rush. But they're on here because they did have the second most sacks of any simulation. So I think that deserves to be mentioned. But other than that, you know, it's was the rest of the pack that isn't in the top three. Next is the New England Patriots. Um, this did pretty good with the Steelers without abilities. When I did test it with the Ravens, it did not do as well. Both those defenses are great. They're the best 3-4 defense in Madden 25, but they're balanced differently. And it just played better with the Steelers. And the Steelers that, like I said, didn't have any of their abilities turned on defense. It was a winning record. And like I said, winning seasons are hard to come by with the Steelers. So it did stand out in that way. Also to note, which might help get better results if you pay attention to formation subs and doing that manually yourself. It is the only playbook in Madden 25 that has the only 3-4 playbook in Madden 25 that has 2-4-3 formations in it. So it's very multiple. A lot of 3-4s have, the 5-1? Is that what it's called? The 5-1 defense or the 4-4. This has 2 regular 4-3 defenses to go with 3 or 4 defenses. So it's very multiple. Give it a try if you want. I saw success with it using the Steelers. It just didn't. It took a turn for the worst kind of when I paired them up with the Ravens. So kind of took me off of them. And then last for the honorable mentions, we have the Baltimore Ravens. This was top something in every sim for me when I used the Steelers. I thought this was going to be in the top 3, but when I used it with the Ravens, it just didn't do that well. But when I used it with the Steelers, either it was the best record, the number 1 in points against, or it was number 1 in pass defense, or it was number 1 in rush defense, or it had a ton of sacks, or it had a ton of interceptions. It was like something every season was good for it. It just wasn't consistent when I used it with other teams, specifically the Ravens, and that's their own playbook. So, yeah, I really thought this playbook was going to be in the top 3, and maybe it could be for you. Give it a try. It's not bad. I know other people have said the Ravens is pretty good. It's just that it didn't turn out the way I thought it was.
Now it's Fields. Able to hook up with Williams here on the out route. And he's going to take it in for a Steeler touchdown.
And at number 3, we have the New York Giants 3-4 defense. Balanced playbook production here. Corners are very important. One of the best first to pass. Always like in the top 3, if not number 1 against the pass. Can get a decent amount of interceptions, but really good where you rank as far as defense against the pass. It wins. It elevates teams. It elevated the Pittsburgh Steelers. Positions I consider important to this defense need a good defensive end in the interior, at least one good linebacker. The outside linebackers help. They're not the most important thing, but the corners, 2 to 3 maybe, they definitely get production. So check out the Giants, elevate your team, get balanced production. You know, you're not going to break sack records, but you're going to get a decent amount of sacks, or you're going to get a decent amount of interceptions. But yeah, man, I really like this defense. I was surprised at how good it was, and I can't wait to do some rebuilds and with it and see where it takes me. So give the New York Giants 3-4 defense a try. And that is our number 3. And coming in at number 2, we have the Denver Broncos 3-4 defensive playbook. It's a winning, team record elevating playbook. We're talking interceptions. This is a top 3 defensive playbook against the pass. Turn the ball over. We're not thinking sacks so much of this. We're thinking about interceptions, good corners, safeties. Middle linebackers are very important. Your middle linebackers will get sacks and interceptions on this. You're consistently taking the ball away. I mean, 15 interceptions is actually a really good mark for a good playbook, and you're consistently going over that, flirting with the 20s and high 20s. Like I said, middle linebacker is important with this playbook. You can, like every 3-4, having a good D end is really important. Someone on the interior defensive line. Outside linebacker is not the most important thing, but of course, if you have some good ones, it definitely helps. But the Denver Broncos playbook, winning, team elevating, get those interceptions. If you value turning the ball over and having really good corners and safeties and taking the ball away, the Denver Broncos 3-4 playbook is your playbook.
Looking to throw, Penix. Pressure comes, and the Steelers take him down. Patrick Queen got in there to stick him. He gets the sack.
But you just knew that these rushers were eager to do that today. Put him on the ground. Their plan, introduce themselves individually to this rookie quarterback. They said hello to Big Way there with a loss of double-digit yards on that sack.
And the number 1 3-4 defensive playbook is the Pittsburgh Steelers 3-4 defensive playbook for quick sim Madden 25 rebuilds. Sacks, baby. Sacks. This playbook had the most sacks I've seen in any simulation, especially when abilities were turned off. You're not going to find another playbook that you can get more sacks out of, especially consistently. If you want to build your outside linebackers, you got to use this playbook. Give it time, but as they will grow faster in this playbook, and they will be productive. You want the next TJ Watt? Well, this is the playbook you got to use. I mean, TJ Watt's in it for a reason, right? Yeah. Like I said, most people value sacks over interceptions. How you want to build this defense: outside linebackers, middle linebackers, and a DN. It's all about that front 7, that interior, that for sure the outside linebackers and your middle linebackers. Corners, safeties, they help. But it's not the end of the world if they're not the greatest. This is all about, your front and what it's doing there, especially the outside linebackers. And then from there, it's just like, what abilities do you add on there to take your sack records to some crazy levels? Because without any abilities, the most sacks I saw were 58 as a team, and that was in the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I know with abilities, the right abilities, you can definitely go over 60, even get to the 70s for sure. And to me, that competes probably with one of the best 4-3 playbooks, and we'll talk about that later. Well, that's it. Get to rebuilding. I also just recently won a championship in the Broncos rebuild by switching to the Steelers 3-4. I was in the LA Chargers. Hey, man, the LA Chargers didn't do so hot when I did test simulations with the Steelers. I think it's more based off of a balanced team and having good interior linemen. Not so much outside linebackers, but it's not even on this list anymore. What was it? It was Dolphins, Chargers, and I forget what the other 3-4 playbook was. Was it the Ravens? It could have been, but hey, completely different list. Tell me what you think. Have you used the Giants? Have you used Broncos? Have you used Steelers? I'm really interested to use Broncos. I want to see what kind of interceptions numbers we can get. The Broncos rebuild I'm in has way better players in the secondary than they do, especially at outside linebacker. So I might be switching to the Denver Broncos this season. We just won a Super Bowl with the Steelers. Let's see what we can do with the Broncos. And then, of course, I want to, do a rebuild at some point with the Giants. I like, having playbooks that are a little off meta, a little, gems that no one really talks about. But there you go. Tell me what you think. Come back with your stories. Tell me, what happened in your rebuilds. How many championships you won? Like, were you struggling on defense? Did this elevate you? The team you were rebuilding wasn't winning championships, and then you used one of these, and your sack numbers went up, and you start winning a bunch of games, and you win. Created a dynasty. So I want to hear all about that. I love it. And even if things are going wrong, tell me, and I'll see if I can help you, or just gives me information that I need to know. Like, hey, this isn't working for me. I'm using this team or whatever. I love all the feedback. But anyway, that's it. We have more stuff coming out. We got to get into the 4-3 defenses. I'm also working on the QB abilities for the Rams playbook, and it's driving me nuts, man. It's like we're right there, and it's like just not consistent with all the simulations. Sometimes we have big spikes, and it's like, what the hell happened here? And just can't get it to replicate in back-to-back seasons a lot of times. So not really sure if we're on the right track, but kind of in the right direction. Anyway, thanks for watching. I appreciate you, and I'll see you next time for more Madden Rebuild content.